There is a 12-second shot in the season 25 Christmas episode, White Christmas Blues, where two Moe Sizzlacs appear in the same room at the same time. The production team called it an animation error. A Reddit user wrote a theory arguing it was not an error at all, and that theory has survived every attempt to dismiss it for over a decade. That is the shape of what Springfield does to people who pay attention. You notice one small thing, you cannot unsee it. And then, if you keep looking, you notice that almost every character in this town has a secret sitting quietly underneath their face, and the show has been placing those secrets into episodes for more than 3 decades. Tonight, we are going through 10 of the most insane fan theories about the characters of The Simpsons, one for each of the faces you know best, and each one supported by evidence the show itself has put on screen. Welcome to Yellow Fan. Let's begin. Homer Simpson, the coma theory. There is a scene in a season 4 episode of The Simpsons where Homer, trying to shake a can of soda loose from a vending machine, gets both of his arms stuck inside it. The scene goes on longer than you would expect. Firefighters show up. A crowd gathers. They try to pull him free. They fail. Then someone in the crowd asks the question that ends the sequence. Has anyone thought about just letting go of the can? And Homer, still with his arms jammed into the machine, slowly looks up and says, "I'm supposed to let go of a free soda?" That moment is played for laughs. It is a classic Homer joke. Greedy, stupid, charming in its way. The episode around it is called So It's Come to This, and it aired in April 1993. It is a clip show, meaning most of the runtime is made up of flashbacks to earlier episodes. The framing story, the thing that holds the clips together, is that Homer has ended up in the hospital in a coma after a soda can exploded in his face. The family gathers around his bed. They tell stories about him while he lies there, eyes closed, unresponsive. At the end of the episode, Homer wakes up. The family laughs. Life goes on. The show moves to the next episode the following week and never really mentions the coma again, except that a fan on Reddit, writing under the name hard_2_pick_a_name, proposed something terrible and strange about that episode. What if Homer never actually woke up? What if the hospital bed scene at the end, the reunion, the laugh, the return to normal life, is not the real ending? What if the real ending is the one we never saw, where Homer stayed under? And everything since that April 1993 episode has been a long, winding dream happening inside a brain that is slowly shutting down. That is the coma theory. It is probably the most famous fan theory in the history of animated television, and once you have heard it, the show is never really the same. Consider what the theory is trying to explain. The Simpsons began airing as a full series in late 1989. That means Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie have lived in Springfield for over 30 years of real time. None of them have aged. Bart is still 10, Lisa is still 8, Maggie is still a baby. Homer is still in his late 30s, which was funny when the show started and has become a kind of cosmic joke now that viewers who grew up with him have outlived the age he is supposed to be. This is explained away, in the real world, by something the industry calls a sliding timeline. Characters in long-running shows do not age because the show does not want them to. That is the sensible answer. But the coma theory offers a different answer, one that fits the inside of the story rather than the outside of it. The characters do not age because Homer stopped being able to perceive time the moment his brain slipped into whatever state it slipped into. The Bart in his mind is frozen at the age Bart was when Homer last saw him clearly. Same with Lisa. Same with Marge. They are not real children growing up. They are photographs his brain is arranging into a story. The theory also explains the way the show has gotten stranger over time. There is a real and measurable difference between the Simpsons of the early seasons and the Simpsons of the later ones. Early Simpsons is grounded. Homer has a job at the power plant. Marge worries about the mortgage. Bart gets in trouble at school. The stakes are small and human and recognizable. Somewhere around season 10 or so, the show starts doing things it would not have done before. Homer becomes a food critic, an astronaut, a bodyguard, a grease salesman, a missionary, a carnival performer. He goes to space. He meets every president. He saves the world multiple times. He owns a plow company. He starts a barbershop quartet that wins a Grammy. He helps Paul McCartney write a song. The plots get louder and louder and less connected to the reality the early show established. Critics have noticed this. Fans have noticed it. There is an entire debate in Simpsons circles about when the show stopped being grounded and started being a cartoon about a cartoon character who could do anything. The coma theory has an answer for that, too. The plots got stranger because Homer's brain is drifting further from reality. The rules of normal life have less and less grip on a mind that is not really running normally anymore. So the dream gets bigger. It reaches for celebrities Homer once read about in magazines. It invents adventures he never had. It lets him meet everyone he ever wanted to meet. Every rock star, every movie star, every president. In a coma, who would stop him? This is where the theory gets genuinely sad, because if you accept it even for a moment, the show becomes a portrait of a man whose life ended at 38, and who has spent the decades since living out an endless, looping fantasy of the family he never got to grow old with. His children never graduate, never leave home, never disappoint him. Marge never stops loving him. He never loses his job for real. He never faces anything he cannot bounce back from in 22 minutes. It is a paradise, but it is a paradise being built by a dying brain, and the brain is running out of fresh material, which is why the later seasons keep recycling old jokes, and why the emotional beats feel thinner, and why the family never feels the weight of anything that happens to them. The theory has a specific name for the moment Homer's mental state broke in a way that explains a lot of what came after. In the season 4 episode Homer the Heretic, which aired in October 1992, Homer decides to stop going to church. He spends a Sunday at home, has the best day of his life, and later that night, God appears to him in a dream. They have a conversation. Homer asks God what the meaning of life is. God says, "I'll tell you when you die." That is where the episode ends in the real show. But a fan theory, floated by a Reddit user going by Rays_of_Davies, argues that what God actually told Homer in that dream, the thing the show did not let us hear, was that Homer is a cartoon, a fictional character, a drawing. And once Homer knew that, once some part of his brain accepted that nothing he did had real consequences because nothing around him was real, he stopped being the lovable, bumbling dad from the early seasons and became something meaner, louder, more selfish, more destructive. The character fans sometimes call jerk-ass Homer, the one who strangles Bart for fun, who puts his family in danger for a sandwich, who makes decisions no sane father would ever make. That Homer, the theory says, is what a man becomes when he knows in his bones that he is not real. Combine the two theories and you get something even darker. Homer learns in a dream that he is a cartoon. Then, months later in the show's timeline, he falls into a coma after the vending machine incident, and the dream that his brain starts generating from inside that coma is shaped by the last piece of information it had, which is that none of this matters. Which is why the show gets weirder, which is why the characters get crueler, which is why nothing has weight anymore. The dreamer knows it is a dream, so the dream stops pretending. The coma theory became famous enough that the show's own writers started addressing it. Al Jean, who has run The Simpsons as showrunner for most of its history, was directly asked about the theory in an interview and said it was not true. He said Homer is not in a coma. He said the show is what it appears to be. But the coma theory has a response for that too. Of course Al Jean would deny it, the theory goes. If the whole show is Homer's dying dream, the characters inside the dream have no way of knowing they are inside it. The showrunner is, in a sense, just another part of the dream arguing that the dream is real. No matter what the official word is, the theory stays standing because it was built to survive official denials. What makes the coma theory stick is that it solves problems the show has never been able to solve for itself. The sliding timeline is a problem. Flashbacks in early seasons show Homer and Marge as teenagers in the 1970s. Flashbacks in later seasons show them as teenagers in the 1990s. They cannot both be true. In the coma theory, they can. A dreaming brain does not keep its timeline straight. It shuffles decades. It remembers the 70s one night and the 90s the next. Small contradictions across 30 years of episodes stop being writing mistakes and start being evidence. Every time the show gets something wrong about its own history, the theory quietly absorbs it and uses it as fuel. There is something else the coma theory does, and it is the reason the theory refuses to die. It gives the later seasons meaning. A lot of longtime fans feel the show is not what it used to be. The golden era, however you define it, is over, and what has replaced it is something that looks like The Simpsons, but does not quite feel like it. This is a painful thing to sit with if you are a fan. You are watching something you love turn into something you do not love in slow motion across years. The coma theory turns that pain into a narrative. The show is not getting worse because the writers lost the magic. The show is getting worse because the man dreaming it is getting worse. Homer's brain is failing in real time, and what we are watching is the shape of that failure. The strange plots, the lost emotional center, the sense that nothing matters anymore. That is not a writing room running out of ideas. That is a mind letting go. Whether you believe it or not, the coma theory has changed how a lot of people rewatch the show. Certain scenes play differently. There is an episode where Homer dreams he is in heaven, and it looks a lot like Springfield. There is a scene where Homer talks to his own brain, and his brain tells him things he does not want to hear. There is a recurring pattern in the show where Homer almost dies and then comes back, over and over, in ways that should have killed him. The coma theory reads all of that as the dream pushing against its own edges, trying to wake its dreamer and failing. And then there is the final piece, the thing that makes the theory feel almost too right. In the season 11 episode, Behind the Laughter, which is framed as a documentary about The Simpsons as a show within the show, Homer says that his family was discovered and turned into a television series. It is a joke. It is obviously a joke. But in the world of the coma theory, it is also the dream admitting what it is. Even the dreamer has moments of clarity. Even Homer, somewhere deep in his own head, knows. There is no final proof for any of this. The show will never officially confirm it, and even if it did, confirmation inside the story would not necessarily count as confirmation outside of it. The coma theory is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a lens to hold over the show, and what you see through that lens is a version of The Simpsons that is simultaneously the funniest show ever made and the saddest. A family frozen in time, a father who never gets to wake up, a dream that just keeps going because what else is it going to do? Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The coma theory makes Homer the center of the show in a new way. It makes him the dreamer, the reason everything else exists, the mind the whole town is running on. But the theory has a quiet problem, one that gets brought up sometimes in the darker corners of the fandom. If Homer is dreaming all of this, then everyone around him is a character in his dream, which raises a question about his own daughter, about the brilliant 8-year-old who keeps trying to tell everyone the truth about the world and keeps getting ignored. If Lisa is a dream, why is she the one who seems to know she is trapped? And if she is not a dream, if she is somehow real in a way the rest of the family is not, then whose story are we actually watching? Section 2. The Simpsons Family, the Hidden Genius Theory. In Season 12 of The Simpsons, there is an episode called HOMR. It aired in January 2001.
And it takes a turn about halfway through that almost nothing in the show's history has ever quite matched. Homer, running low on money, agrees to sell his body to a medical research lab for $50 a session. The doctors run a brain scan. They look at the results. They look again. Then they call Homer into the office and tell him something that changes the whole story. There is a crayon stuck in his brain. Not a small one. A full-sized Crayola crayon jammed up his nose and into his skull when he was 6 years old, where it has sat ever since, pressing against the parts of his brain responsible for reasoning and intelligence. The doctors offer to remove it. Homer agrees. And when they pull the crayon out, the man who sits up from the operating table is not the Homer we know. He is sharp. He is articulate. He speaks in full, careful sentences. He cries at a painting. He reads a book and understands it. He connects with Lisa on a level he has never connected with her on before. For the first time in the show's history, Homer and his daughter have a real conversation, one that does not end in a joke, one where he actually sees her. And then Homer, after spending an afternoon as the intelligent man he could have been, walks into Moe's tavern. His friends look at him strangely. They do not know what to say to him. He does not know what to say to them. The whole social world he built his life around has become a place he does not fit. He goes back to the lab. He asks them to put the crayon back in. That scene is the single strongest piece of evidence for a theory that a lot of fans consider the most emotionally honest reading of the show. Every member of the Simpson family is a genius. Every single one of them. And every single one of them, except Lisa, has made a choice to hide it. The theory starts with Homer because Homer's case is the most obvious. HOMR confirms on screen, in canon, that his stupidity is not natural. It is a physical blockage. Remove it and he is brilliant. Put it back and he returns to the man we know. The episode ends with Homer writing a letter to Lisa, which she reads in her bedroom, where he tells her that the world does not have a place for smart people like her, and she is going to have to be strong because being smart is hard. It is one of the most quietly devastating endings of any episode in the show's run. It also sets up the larger question the theory is trying to answer. If Homer is secretly a genius, is he the only one? Look at Marge. The show has shown her past in enough flashbacks across the decades that a picture starts to form. She was a talented painter. She wrote strong essays in high school. She went to college and did well there before dropping out. In the Season 6 episode A Star Is Burns, she creates a film that moves people to tears. In the Season 11 episode Large Marge, she accidentally becomes successful at every job she tries. In another episode, she starts a pretzel business and proves to have a real head for it. She is good at chess. She is good at bowling when she bothers. She is good at just about everything she turns her hand to. The theory reads Marge as a woman who had every door open to her and chose deliberately to close them. She wanted a husband and children and a quiet house on Evergreen Terrace. She wanted the stable, ordinary life she grew up watching her mother have. The price of that life was pretending she was not capable of more, because being capable of more would have pulled her toward a different life altogether. Bart is the harder sell, but the evidence is there if you look. He is a terrible student. His grades are famously awful. Edna Krabappel gives up on him as a matter of school policy. But Bart's failures are academic. In every other way, he is sharp. He speaks French after living in France for only a few months in the Season 1 episode, The Crepes of Wrath. He writes a children's book that becomes a hit in the Season 14 episode, The Bart of War. He wins an Emmy for writing an episode of Itchy and Scratchy with Lisa. He creates an Academy Award-winning animated short based on his Angry Dad comics. He runs elaborate pranks that require real planning and real understanding of how people think. In the Season 3 episode, Bart the Genius, he cheats his way into a school for gifted children, and then, when the work is placed in front of him, he finds he can actually do it if he tries. He just hates trying. The theory reads Bart as a kid who figured out early that being smart would get him moved to a different school, separated from his friends, and turned into the kind of child his father would not know how to talk to. So he stays where he is. He plays dumb on purpose. He gets attention the other way. Grandpa Simpson is often written off as a senile old man who rambles about nothing. But the show has shown, repeatedly, that he was something else entirely when he was younger. In the Season 7 episode, Raging Abe Simpson and his grumbling grandson in The Curse of the Flying Hellfish, we learn he was a highly competent soldier in World War II. He led a unit, he fought in combat, he survived missions that killed the men around him. In another episode, he is shown to be a talented piano player. In another, he holds his own in a high-level poker game. He was sharp and capable for decades. The theory says Grandpa's current confusion is not the truth of who he is. It is the end result of a long life spent performing a role, the same way Homer performs his. He got comfortable being the grouchy old man who yells at clouds, and eventually the performance swallowed the performer. Maggie is the most direct case because the show has never let us forget what she is capable of. In the two-part Season 6 episode, Who Shot Mr. Burns, it is Maggie, a baby, who pulls the trigger on Charles Montgomery Burns and nearly kills him. Not by accident. The show makes it clear she aimed. In another episode, she pulls a rifle on a mobster to save Homer. In another, she solves a complex puzzle before her siblings. In the Season 20 episode, Lisa the Drama Queen, we see Maggie understanding things around her that no one else does. She is aware. She is watching. She is not a baby in the normal sense. She is a fully formed mind trapped in a body that cannot yet express itself. And the show keeps quietly showing us this, over and over, in ways that would be easy to miss. The theory says Maggie has not chosen yet. She is still too young. She will face the same question her siblings faced, smart and unhappy, or happy and hidden. Which brings us to Lisa. Lisa, who chose the other way. Lisa, who is the saddest character in the show, not because the writers hate her, but because she is the only member of her family who refuses to lie about who she is. She is a vegetarian in a town of meat-eaters. She is a Buddhist in a town of half-attentive Christians. She plays saxophone in a family that has no idea why. She reads books no one else reads. She cares about things no one else cares about. And the show has been showing us, from Season 1 onward, what that choice costs her. She is lonely. She cries a lot. She is passed over, ignored, misunderstood by nearly everyone in her life, including the parents who love her and cannot follow her. In the Season 6 episode Lisa's Wedding, we see a flash-forward version of her adult life, where she has grown into a brilliant, accomplished woman who is also, visibly, a little broken by what it took to become that person. In the Season 7 episode Lisa the Vegetarian, she makes a choice that puts her at odds with her own family, and the episode refuses to pretend that choice is easy. The theory gives Lisa's sadness a shape. She is not sad because she is smart. She is sad because she can see what the others chose and she cannot bring herself to choose it. She cannot unsee what she sees. She cannot pretend. She cannot put the crayon back in. Every day she wakes up in a house full of people she loves, who love her back, and she knows that none of them will ever really understand her, because understanding her would require them to break the agreement they have all made with themselves. And so she sticks her intelligence out, like a flag nobody salutes, and she keeps going. There is a beautiful moment at the end of Homer that this theory always comes back to. After Homer has the crayon put back in, after he returns to the man his friends know, he does one last thing as his genius self before the procedure. He writes Lisa a letter. He tells her that he knows she feels alone. He tells her that he has seen the world the way she sees it, and he understands now why she is sad. He tells her he loves her, and then he has the crayon reinserted and forgets everything. Lisa reads the letter in her bedroom at the end of the episode. She cries. And what she is crying about, the theory argues, is that she got one afternoon. Her father had one afternoon where he could actually see her, and he used that afternoon to tell her he was going back into the fog, because being in the fog is where his friends are. The letter is an apology. It is also a goodbye. It is Homer saying, I know what you are going through, and I am leaving you to go through it alone. The hidden genius theory is not a dark theory in the way the coma theory is dark. It is not trying to undo the show. It is trying to explain why the show, at its best, is so much more emotionally powerful than a cartoon about a yellow family has any right to be. The theory says the show is secretly, quietly, about the difference between people who can live with comfortable lies and people who cannot. Most of us can. Most of us do. The Simpson family can, and they are happy, in their messy, cartoonish way. Lisa cannot, and she is the price the family pays for that happiness. Her sadness is the thing the others are avoiding by staying stupid. Once you see the show this way, small moments start to matter in a different way. The way Homer looks at Lisa sometimes when she thinks he is not watching. The way Marge gets quiet when Lisa talks about her dreams for the future. The way Bart, who loves his sister even when he is tormenting her, occasionally says something surprisingly gentle to her in a moment where nobody else is listening. The family knows. On some level, the theory says, the family knows what Lisa is carrying for them. They just cannot say it out loud, because saying it would mean admitting what they chose. And so they love her the way they love her, which is partly tender and partly guilty and entirely honest in its own strange way. The theory also changes how you watch the way the Simpson family moves through Springfield. They are not just a dysfunctional family bumbling through a cartoon town. They are a family of people who have agreed, silently, collectively, to dim themselves down to match the world around them. The world they live in is loud, simple, and not built for thinking, so they stopped thinking. Lisa did not stop. That is the whole story. And this is why the theory has lasted. It gives the show a center of gravity. It explains why Lisa's sadness has always felt like more than a character quirk. It explains why the crayon scene in Homer, which is technically a throwaway gag, keeps coming up in lists of the most moving moments in animated television. It explains why the show, after 30 years, still has the power to land an emotional beat when it decides it wants to. The beats are landing on a foundation that was built into the family from the start, whether the writers meant it or not. The family chose happiness over brilliance. Lisa chose brilliance over happiness. That is the trade the theory identifies, and the trade is the show. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But this trade, this quiet agreement the Simpson family made with itself, is the exception and not the rule in Springfield. Most of the town did not get to choose. Most of the town was shaped into what it is by forces outside its control. And some of those forces
have been sitting in that town for longer than anyone wants to admit. One of them has survived assassination attempts, nuclear accidents, multiple wars, and at least one known case of being impaled through the heart with a wooden stake. He runs the power plant. He owns most of the town. And the next theory proposes, with an unsettling amount of evidence, that he has been doing all of this for a very, very long time. Section 3. Mr. Burns, the vampire theory. There is a moment in the Season 5 Halloween special of The Simpsons, which aired in October 1993,
where Lisa is walking through the basement of Mr. Burns's castle in Pennsylvania. She has wandered away from dinner. She is holding a candle, and on a pedestal in front of her, she finds a book. The book is large and leather-bound, the kind of thing you would expect to find in an old library. She opens it. The title page reads, in enormous letters, the words, "Yes, I am a vampire." The author is listed as Montgomery Burns. The foreword is by Steve Allen. The segment is called Bart Simpson's Dracula, and it is part of Treehouse of Horror 4. It is a Halloween episode, which means it is not canon, meaning the events in it are not supposed to count as part of the real show. But canon is a slippery thing in The Simpsons, and Halloween specials have a long habit of telling truths the regular show cannot quite bring itself to tell. In this one, Mr. Burns is Count Dracula. The Simpsons are invited to his castle for dinner. He bites Bart in a hidden basement full of coffins. He tries to bite Lisa. The family eventually kills him by driving a wooden stake through his heart, at which point he crumbles to dust, reanimates briefly to fire Homer from the power plant, and then crumbles again. And then the episode keeps going. What the episode reveals at the end, in a twist that has kept fans arguing for 30 years, is that Burns was not the head vampire. Killing him does not save Bart. The family goes home, and Lisa discovers that every single member of the Simpson family, except her, has been turned. Marge is standing in the kitchen at dawn, her teeth now long and pointed, smiling at her daughter. Marge, it turns out, was the real head vampire all along. The Halloween special ends. The show moves on. Monty Burns returns the following week as he always does, alive, in charge of the power plant, yelling at Smithers. The Dracula thing was a joke, a parody of a Coppola movie that had come out the previous year. Nothing to take seriously, except some fans have never quite been able to drop it. Because when you lay out everything the show has established about Charles Montgomery Burns across 30 plus years of episodes, a pattern emerges, and the pattern looks a lot less like cartoon exaggeration and a lot more like the show has been showing us, quietly, consistently, in scene after scene, that Monty Burns is not a normal human being. He is something else, something older, something that does not die the way the rest of us do. Start with his age. The show has played with Burns's age for decades, and the numbers never settle, but they are always absurd. He is sometimes said to be 104, sometimes older. In the Season 7 episode, Raging Abe Simpson, we see Burns in a flashback to World War II, already an adult, fully formed, running around Germany in a uniform. In the Season 2 episode, Blood Feud, he says he was born in an age before modern medicine. In other episodes, he remembers vaudeville, the invention of electricity, the early days of American industry. He speaks about the Great Depression as a time he lived through as an adult, not a child. The math never adds up to a human lifespan, but the show keeps making it work, because in Springfield, Burns is the oldest thing around. Then look at his body. Burns is, by every visible measure, falling apart. His skin is paper thin. His bones are visible through his clothes. His hair is gone. His voice rasps. In the Season 4 episode, Last Exit to Springfield, a doctor tells Burns that his body has been hit by so many diseases at once that none of them can get in because they are all jammed in the doorway fighting each other. The doctor calls this the Three Stooges syndrome. It is a joke, but it is also a canonical explanation for why Burns has not died. His body is so wrecked that nothing can finish the job. In medical terms, he should have been dead decades ago. He is not. He continues, and continues, and continues. Count up the things Burns has survived on screen. He has been shot in the chest by a baby and nearly killed. He recovers. He gets stung by so many bees in another episode that his face swells shut. He recovers. He falls down mountains. He gets hit by cars. He is eaten by a pack of dogs, almost. He is thrown out windows. He is exposed to nuclear radiation, which you would think would matter for a man who owns a nuclear power plant, and the radiation seems to have no effect on him. It glows through his skin sometimes in later episodes, a trick the show plays in flashbacks and Halloween segments, but his body does not respond to it the way a normal body would. He absorbs it. He keeps going. In the season 8 episode Burns, Baby Burns, we meet his long-lost adult son Larry, who is already in his late 40s. Burns must have fathered him somewhere in the distant past, which again pushes his age into territory no real man could occupy. The vampire theory takes all of this and asks a simple question. What if the show has been telling us, plainly, the whole time? What if the reason Burns does not age like a normal man, does not die like a normal man, does not heal or bleed or fail like a normal man, is that he is not a normal man at all? What if the Dracula episode was not a parody, but a confession, dressed up in Halloween clothes so nobody had to deal with it as a real thing? The book in the basement said, "Yes, I am a vampire," and his name was on the cover. The theory has more to work with than just the Halloween segment. Look at Burns's habits. He lives in a mansion that is almost never lit by direct sunlight. The windows are heavy, the curtains are drawn. He travels in a black car. He is rarely seen outdoors during the day without a hat, a coat, an umbrella, or all three. The show has played this for comedy many times, showing Burns wincing at the sun, crumpling under the weight of a breeze. It is meant to look like he is just frail. But frail men do not live past 104. Frail men do not survive radiation, bees, bullets, and falls. Look at his diet. Burns drinks from a cup in Treehouse of Horror 4 that Lisa correctly identifies as blood. He has owned the Springfield Blood Bank in more than one episode, bought it outright in the Dracula segment, and has been shown storing blood for reasons the show never quite explains. In the season 6 episode, 201 Greyhounds, Burns plans to skin a litter of puppies for a tuxedo, which is a bit of cartoon villainy, but the larger pattern of Burns needing things taken from other living creatures to sustain his own appearance is a thread that runs through the show from the very first season onward. He takes, he never gives, he drains. Look at his relationship with Smithers. Smithers is described as his assistant, his right hand, his devoted employee, but the dynamic between them has a specific flavor that the theory seizes on. Smithers does everything for Burns. He feeds him, he handles his business, he stays close to him, always, and seems to have no life outside of him. In vampire stories, this is a familiar figure. The vampire keeps a human companion, someone bound to him by loyalty or obsession, who takes care of the practical things the vampire cannot do during the day. In old Dracula films, this character is called the Familiar. In the Bram Stoker novel, the most famous version is a man named Renfield. The theory reads Smithers as Burns's Renfield. The devotion that looks strange in a boss-employee relationship makes perfect sense in a vampire and familiar one. Look at the way other characters talk about him. In the season 6 episode, Who Shot Mr. Burns? After Burns has been shot and the town has to investigate, nobody is surprised that someone tried to kill him. Everyone assumed it would happen eventually. The town treats Burns like a force that exists outside the normal rules, something that will outlast them all, something that was here before they got here and will be here after they are gone. The Springfield residents do not fear him the way you fear a powerful man. They fear him the way you fear something that does not quite belong to the world you live in. That distinction matters. Look at the way he is drawn. Burns's design, from season 1 onward, borrows from vampire iconography in ways that are too consistent to be accidental. The skeletal frame, the long, thin fingers, the hunched posture, the way he leans forward when he walks, as if stalking something, the pointed, almost fang-like look of his teeth when he grins. The animators have played with these details across 3 decades, and every time the show wants to emphasize how strange he is, they reach for the same visual tricks. They make his shadow longer than his body. They make his eyes catch light in ways normal eyes do not. In the Dracula segment, they barely have to change his design at all to turn him into a vampire. He was already halfway there. The vampire theory also offers an explanation for one of the most talked about scenes in the show's history. In the season 5 episode, Homer the Heretic, there is a flashback where Burns is struck by lightning and just absorbs it, barely reacting. Lightning, straight through his body. He smiles. In the season 2 episode, 2 Cars in Every Garage and 3 Eyes on Every Fish, he is shown walking through his own nuclear plant with no protection at all, while workers in full suits are shown behind him. In the season 9 episode, The Trouble with Trillions, Burns ends up hiding on a remote island, outliving presidents, watching the world change around him with the detached calm of someone who has done it before. None of these scenes on their own prove anything. That is not the point of the theory. The point is that when you line up enough of them, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. The show keeps putting Monty Burns in situations where a normal man would die, and a normal man never does. Something else is in there. Something older than Springfield. Something the town has been living next to for longer than anyone has bothered to count. There is one more piece of evidence the theory loves, and it is small, and it is in the Dracula segment itself. When Homer drives the stake through Burns's heart and Burns crumbles to dust, he reanimates for one last moment, sits up, and fires Homer. That detail is supposed to be a joke, a last bit of cartoon spite before the villain crumbles again. But read it through the vampire lens and it becomes something else. It becomes proof that killing Burns does not actually kill him. The body goes, the man remains. He comes back because he cannot be permanently ended, at least not by a wooden stake alone. The regular Burns has come back too, from things that should have finished him. A gunshot to the chest, a nuclear accident, a fall from a great height, bees, disease, old age itself, which is the thing the theory says he conquered a long time ago, by methods the show has never fully shown us and probably never will. The vampire theory does not ask you to believe it in a literal sense. The show is a cartoon. Nothing in it is real. But it asks you to notice what the show has been doing all along, which is treating Burns as a man who exists on a different time scale than the rest of the town, who lives by different rules, who takes from others to sustain himself and never seems to give anything back, and who cannot be permanently removed no matter what happens to him. Whether you call that a vampire or something else, the pattern is there, in episode after episode, across 3 decades of television. In a show where every character is supposed to be frozen in a kind of endless present, where nobody ages and nobody changes, Burns is the only one for whom that immortality feels earned. The rest of the town is frozen because the show refuses to let them age. Burns, the theory argues, is frozen because he figured out how to stop aging a long time ago, on his own terms, by whatever means the show only hints at. He owns the town. He runs the plant. He watches everyone around him grow old and die and be replaced. And he keeps signing the paychecks. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Burns gets to be immortal because the show shows us over and over that he already is. But not every strange character in Springfield gets that kind of careful attention. Some of them have a backstory that changes every time they are asked about it. A name that shifts between episodes. A history that cannot be pinned down,
no matter how hard you try. There is one character in particular who has been at the same bar, in the same apron, pouring the same drinks for more than 30 years, and the show still cannot decide where he is from, what his real name is, or whether he is even the same person who started the job. Section 4. Moe Sizzlac. The Moe is a role, not a person theory. In the season 25 episode, White Christmas Blues of The Simpsons, which aired in December 2013, there is a shot that lasts about half a second.
It is a holiday scene at Moe's Tavern. The camera pans across the bar, and in that half second on the screen, there are two Moes. One is standing behind the counter, the other is sitting at a stool in the corner, turned away from the camera, but unmistakably recognizable. Same hunched shoulders, same apron, same hairline. Two Moes in the same room at the same time. The show's production team eventually confirmed it was an animation mistake. The second figure was not supposed to be there. It was a glitch, a duplicate asset, an error that slipped through. That is the official answer, and it is the boring one. The fan theory that sprang up around that half-second shot is much more interesting. It is also more than a joke. Once you start pulling at it, the theory starts to explain things about Moe Sizzlac that the show has never been able to explain about itself. The theory, laid out most clearly by a Reddit user going by Jax9999, goes like this. Moe is not a person. Moe is a role. Like Santa Claus, or a night watchman, or the host of a late-night television program. The position of Moe can be filled by anyone whose life has reached a certain level of misery. When one Moe burns out, which happens often, because being Moe is very hard, another one takes over. There can be more than one Moe at a time, but there usually is not, because Moes tend to remove themselves from the equation before the next one has a chance to arrive. The bar goes on. The apron gets passed down. The prank calls keep coming in. That is the whole theory in its simplest form. It sounds ridiculous. It also fits the evidence better than anything the show itself has ever offered. Start with where Moe is from. Across the show's run, Moe has given, or been given, more different backstories than any other character in Springfield. He is claimed to be Dutch. He is claimed to be from the Netherlands. He is claimed to be Italian and used an Italian accent in flashback scenes. His last name, Sizzlac, is Polish, which would suggest Polish heritage. His accent, when he speaks as himself, is a thick New York accent, which would suggest neither. In the Season 7 episode, Much Apoo About Nothing, Moe is shown taking his United States citizenship test, meaning he is an immigrant, though the show has also shown him growing up in Indiana in flashbacks from other episodes. In the Season 21 episode, Lisa Gaga, Moe refers to himself as half monster, half Armenian. In the Season 22 episode, Moe Goes From Rags to Riches, Moe tells a story in which his father is a Yeti living on top of Mount Everest. In a different episode, he claims his birth was the result of a voodoo curse placed on his mother, causing him to gestate for 5 years and then emerge backwards and on fire. No person has that many origins. One of those stories would be the truth. The rest would be lies, or jokes, or confused memories. But all of them, every single one, being offered sincerely across different episodes, suggests something else. Each one might be the truth for a different Moe. Now look at his name. The show has given Moe several different first names across the years. In the Season 3 episode Flaming Moes, his lover calls him Morris. In the Season 6 episode, The Springfield Connection, Homer pulls up a police record on Moe, and his first name is listed as Moamar. In the Season 20 episode, Eeny Teeny Maya Moe, Moe mentions that he only started going by the name Moe when he bought the tavern. Before that, he was someone else. After that, he was Moe. That last line is the key one. In the vampire theory we discussed earlier, the evidence for Burns being a vampire builds across 3 decades of little moments. The Moe theory has its own version of that moment, and it is the line in Eeny Teeny Maya Moe. Moe is telling us, on screen, in canon, that Moe is a name he took on. It was not given to him at birth. He picked it up when he took over the bar. Before the bar, he had a different name. After the bar, he became Moe. The theory extends that logic. If Moe was not always Moe, and if Moe took the name when he took the job, then the name is tied to the job rather than to the person. Anyone who takes the job becomes Moe. The name is a title. The apron is a uniform. The bar is the office. The man inside the uniform, whoever he is on any given day, is just the current occupant. This explains the backstory problem. Every Moe has his own backstory, and the show has been telling us all of them, one after another, without realizing that they cannot belong to the same man. The Dutch Moe was one Moe. The Italian Moe was another. The Yeti-fathered Moe was a third. The Voodoo Curse Moe was a fourth. They are not contradictions, they are layers. A succession of men, each one ending up behind that bar, each one telling his own version of how he got there. The theory also explains Moe's relationship with suicide. Moe has attempted to kill himself more times than any other character in the show. He has tried in Christmas episodes. He has tried in ordinary ones. He has set up elaborate methods and simple ones. He has sat at the bar after closing with a rope in his hands and a look on his face that the show plays partly for laughs and partly for something darker. In the Season 8 episode Mom and Pop Art, Moe mentions that he keeps a suicide kit in the back room. In the Season 11 episode Pygmalion, he describes his own face to his friends and lists its features the way a coroner might list evidence. He has no self-respect. He has no hope. He has no future he can describe without flinching. In the theory, this is not just character. This is the system working. The role of Moe is so heavy that the men who take it on are pushed, over time, toward ending their own tenure. When they do, another one arrives to take over. The bar never closes. The apron is never empty. The prank calls keep coming, and each new Moe falls for them the same way the last one did, because the role demands it. The role makes you gullible. The role makes you angry. The role makes you lonely. Nobody arrives at the bar already like this. The bar makes them like this. Consider the animation error again with this in mind. Two Moes in the same room, in the same frame, for half a second in a Christmas episode. The production team says it was a mistake. The theory says it was the handoff. One Moe was finishing his shift. The other was just starting. The show caught them both by accident during the moment when the role was passing from one man to the next. And then the next episode aired, and there was only one Moe behind the bar, because the other one had moved on to wherever retired Moes go. There is a second layer to this theory that pulls in one of the oldest fan observations about the show. Moe and Barney Gumble, the longtime barfly who spends most of his waking life at Moe's Tavern, look suspiciously similar in certain shots. Same body type, same coloring more or less, same slump. A theory has circulated for years, in various forms, that Moe and Barney are the same person at different points in his life. Barney is what Moe looks like when he has given up on standing behind the bar and has started drinking in front of it instead. Or Moe is what Barney becomes when he finally sobers up enough to hold down a job, which in Moe's case is the job of serving the drinks he used to drink. One version of the theory has Barney traveling through time, using Professor Frink's time machine to change his own past and become Moe before Moe existed. Another version has Moe aging backwards into Barney. These versions are silly on their face, and the show has never confirmed them, but the deeper observation underneath them is solid. The two characters exist on a shared continuum. They are both men who ended up at that bar, one on each side of the counter, and the show keeps using them to say something about how the bar itself shapes the people who spend their lives inside it. There is yet another version of the theory, and it is the one that gives the whole idea its emotional weight. Some fans have argued that Moe is Bart Simpson grown up, that the boy we see making prank calls to the tavern in every episode is the same boy who will, decades later, grow up to run that tavern. The evidence is thin, but not nothing. Moe has a soft spot for Bart that the show has never fully explained. In episodes like Dumbbell Indemnity and Eeny Teeny Maya Moe, Moe treats Bart with a protectiveness that does not match his treatment of anyone else. He remembers things Bart said years before. He looks at Bart sometimes with an expression the animators never give him when he looks at anyone else. In the season 11 episode Pygmalion, Moe briefly becomes handsome through plastic surgery, and one of the first people he wants to impress is Bart, not because Bart is a customer, but because Bart is Bart. In the Bart becomes Moe version of the theory, the role of Moe eventually falls to a Bart Simpson who grew up, failed at everything, and ended up running the bar he used to prank call as a kid. The prank calls he receives as an adult are, in a sense, his own younger self reaching back through time to mess with him. The suicide attempts are him trying to escape the life his younger self laid out for him. The soft spot he has for the present-day Bart is him seeing himself and feeling something between tenderness and dread. This version combines with the main theory in a clean way. If Moe is a role that anyone can fill when their life reaches a certain level of collapse, then Bart, grown up and beaten down, could easily become one of the men who ends up behind that bar. Not the first Moe, not the last, just one of many. A version of the role that lasted as long as he could last it, and then was replaced. What the Moe theory does, taken as a whole, is make sense of a character who has never quite made sense as a single person. The show has been contradicting itself about him for more than 3 decades. His nationality, his name, his family, his past, his age, his appearance when he was younger, all of it shifts and reshifts depending on which episode you watch. There is no way to build one coherent man out of those pieces. The theory accepts that and offers an alternative. Do not try to build one man. Accept that the bar has had several. Each one was Moe for a while. Then each one stopped being Moe, by whatever means, and another one took over. The apron fits every Moe the same way. The bar looks the same to every Moe. The customers, with one exception we will get to in a later section, treat every Moe the same way. The prank calls keep coming, the phone keeps ringing, and whoever is standing behind the counter when the phone rings picks it up, believes the voice on the other end, and falls for the joke, because that is what Moe does. That is what the role requires. Somewhere in Springfield, right now, there is probably a man who used to be someone else, who has lost enough and broken enough that the role is starting to look like an option. He will walk into the bar one night, and the current Moe will be gone, and the apron will be hanging on a hook, and he will put it on, and the phone will ring. The theory gives Moe's sadness a structure. It makes every contradiction into evidence. It explains the animation error, the shifting names, the impossible backstories, the soft spot for Bart, the connection to Barney, the 30 years of inconsistency. It offers one answer that covers all of it. What it does not quite cover is the question of who originally designed the role. Someone set up the bar. Someone made the apron. Someone decided that there would always be a Moe. The theory treats this as just how Springfield works, a piece of the town's architecture. But once you accept that Moe is a role, you have to ask who else in Springfield might be one. Who else is wearing a uniform and answering to a name that does not really belong to them? Who else is pretending, for reasons the show will eventually reveal, to be someone they are not? Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously.
It turns out there is a man at the local elementary school who has been standing in front of classrooms for decades, answering to a name he did not start his life with, and his secret was so big that the show had to create an entire episode just to tell it, and then another entire episode's worth of effort trying to take it back. Section 5, Principal Skinner, the Armin Tamzarian Problem. On September 28, 1997, The Simpsons aired an episode called The Principal and the Pauper. It was the second episode of Season 9. It ran 22 minutes, the same as every other episode of the show, and by the time those 22 minutes were over, the writers had done something to Principal Seymour Skinner that they have never fully undone, no matter how hard they have tried. The episode opens with a surprise banquet.
The town is gathered to celebrate Skinner's 20th anniversary as principal of Springfield Elementary. There are speeches, there is cake, there is a warm, familiar, Springfield at its best feeling in the room. And then a man walks through the doors, an older soldier with graying hair, played by the guest star Martin Sheen, and he announces that he is the real Seymour Skinner, the man behind the microphone, the man everyone in the room has known for 20 years is an imposter. The imposter, under pressure, admits it on the spot. His real name is Armin Tamzarian. He is an orphan from Capital City. As a young man, he got into trouble with the law for stealing from an elderly woman, and a judge gave him a choice between prison and joining the military. Armin picked the military. He went to Vietnam. Over there, he served under a sergeant named Seymour Skinner, and Seymour became a kind of father figure to him, teaching him about discipline and purpose and the value of doing right. On a scouting mission, Seymour was captured and reported dead. Armin, devastated, traveled to Seymour's hometown of Springfield to deliver the news to his mother, Agnes. But Agnes, overcome with grief at losing her son, mistook Armin for Seymour. And Armin, looking at this grieving old woman, could not bring himself to correct her, so he stayed. He let her believe he was her son. He took the name, he took the life. He became a principal. He did it for so long that he almost forgot he had ever been anyone else. Then the real Skinner came back. It turned out he had not died in Vietnam. He had been captured and sold into slavery. He spent 20 years in a sweatshop making shoes, and then he escaped, and he traveled home, and he walked into his own anniversary banquet to find another man wearing his name like a coat. The town, in the chaos that follows, tries to welcome the real Skinner home. They try to love him. They try to build a life around him. And they find over the course of the episode that they cannot. The real Skinner is abrasive. He is difficult. He does not fit the shape they have carved for Skinner in their minds. The man they loved, the man they thought was Skinner, was Armin. And so, in the final act of the episode, the town makes a decision. They banish the real Skinner. They tie him to a chair and put him on a freight train out of town. Judge Snyder issues a ruling that Armin Tamzarian will be known as Seymour Skinner from this point forward, and that nobody is ever to mention the name Tamzarian again, under penalty of torture. That is the ending. The show's creators then tried to treat it from the following week onward like the episode had never happened. And the episode is not unknown. It is one of the most talked about episodes in the show's entire run, for reasons that have almost nothing to do with the plot itself. Fans hated it. Matt Groening, the creator of the show, has publicly called it a mistake and said it is one of his least favorite episodes. Harry Shearer, who has voiced Skinner since the very first season, said in interviews that the twist felt arbitrary to him and that he did not enjoy performing it. The reaction was strong enough that the show has tried, in small ways, to pretend the episode never aired. Skinner returned the following week as Skinner. Agnes called him Seymour. Nothing changed. The show hit the reset button so hard that most casual viewers of the show to this day do not know the episode exists. The problem, for fans who do know it exists, is that hitting a reset button does not actually reset anything. Judge Snyder's ruling does not unmake the truth. It just bans people from acknowledging it. The man standing in front of those students every morning is still Armin Tamzarian. He is still an orphan from Capital City who took on someone else's name because he could not bear to disappoint a grieving old woman. He has been living inside that lie for as long as anyone in Springfield has known him. The town has agreed collectively to pretend the lie is not there. That does not make the lie go away. It just makes it everyone's lie instead of just his. That is the fan theory at the center of this character. Not that Skinner might be someone else. The show told us definitively that he is. The theory is about what that means when you apply it backward and forward across the entire history of the character. Every moment of Skinner's 20-plus years as principal, every moment of his relationship with his mother Agnes, every moment of his authority over the children of Springfield Elementary now has to be read through the fact that none of it is really his. Take his relationship with Agnes first. Agnes Skinner is one of the most memorable side characters in the show. She is tiny, she is mean, she is controlling. She treats her son like a little boy even though he is a middle-aged man, and the two of them live together in a relationship that has been played for laughs in episode after episode. She bosses him around. He cowers. She criticizes his cooking, his posture, his choice of friends, his whole way of being in the world. And through it all, he calls her mother, and she calls him Seymour. Read that through the Tamzarian twist, and the whole dynamic becomes something else. She is not his mother. He is not her son. He is a man who walked into her house with terrible news, looked at her face, and decided he could not deliver it. Every interaction they have had since, every meal she has criticized, every lecture she has given him, every time she has humiliated him in public, has been happening to a man who is not actually her child. He endures it because he feels he owes her the performance. He let her believe she still had a son. He cannot take that back now without breaking her. And there is a darker piece of this. In the original episode, when the real Skinner returns, Agnes does not warmly embrace him. She tolerates him. She picks at him. She never quite settles into the feeling that he is hers. And when the town decides to banish the real Skinner and keep Armin, Agnes goes along with it. She says goodbye to her actual son and goes home with the imposter. That detail is quietly devastating. The mother chose the man who was not her son over the son who was. Armin has become her son by the sheer fact of having spent 20 years performing the part. The real thing does not measure up to the performance. Now look at him as a principal. He has been running Springfield Elementary for decades in Showtime. He has shaped thousands of children. He has enforced rules, delivered speeches, disciplined kids for small infractions and large ones. He has stood as the face of authority for a generation of Springfield residents. And he has done all of this while living under a name that does not belong to him, in a life that does not belong to him, with a mother who is not his mother, carrying a military record that is not his, a last name that is not his, and a past that is entirely borrowed. Consider what kind of man it takes to hold that performance together for that long. Not a weak one. The theory that comes out of this, the thing fans have returned to again and again, is that Skinner is actually one of the most disciplined, carefully controlled characters in the entire show. He has to be. One slip, one wrong answer to the wrong question, and the whole life he has built collapses. He chose every day for 20 years to be Seymour Skinner. That choice is what makes him who he is. The name may be stolen, The life is not. He earned the life by living it. Writer Ken Keeler, who wrote the episode and has defended it for years, has made a version of this argument in interviews. He has said that the episode is really about the kind of person who refuses to accept that a fictional character can have a life changed by a plot twist, that it is satire of fans who cannot bear any disruption to the stability of a cartoon, that Armin Tamzarian is, in the episode itself, a man who gave up everything to become someone better, and the town's decision to let him keep that life is actually a deeply kind one. The town is saying in the end that who you are is what you do, and who Armin has been for 20 years is Seymour Skinner. The theory that fans build on top of this goes further. If Skinner is really Armin, then every scene involving him in every episode aired after September 1997 is, in some sense, a scene about a man living inside someone else's name. The humor of those scenes does not change. Skinner is still stiff and awkward and easily flustered, but the texture of it changes. His stiffness is not just a personality trait. It is the posture of someone who is constantly, quietly, making sure he does not slip. There is a moment fans point to in the Season 5 episode Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song, which aired years before the Tamzarian reveal. In it, Skinner loses his job as principal and, in the process, seems to lose his sense of self. He becomes aimless. He wanders. He shows up at the Simpson house looking for comfort, and the episode plays his identity crisis for laughs, but with an unexpected amount of tenderness. At the time, the scene read as a man who had poured too much of himself into a job. Reread through the Tamzarian lens, the scene becomes something sharper. He is not just a man who loved his job. He is a man whose job is the only thing holding his borrowed identity together. Without the principal's office, there is no Seymour Skinner. There is just Armin, far from Capital City, with no good reason to be in Springfield at all. There is a further layer fans have dug into. The real Seymour Skinner, Martin Sheen's character, was handled cruelly by the town. The real soldier, the real son, the real person who actually was who he said he was, gets tied to a chair and put on a freight train and banished forever. The town preferred the lie. They preferred the performance. They preferred the man they had gotten used to. This is a bleak thing to sit with. The show is telling us, in its own strange way, that people do not actually value truth in the way they claim to. They value familiarity. They value the version of a person they have learned to navigate, even when the real version is standing right there asking to be let in. Agnes Skinner went home with an imposter. The town welcomed the imposter back into his office, and the show itself, in the weeks and years after, continued to treat the imposter as if he had always been the real one, while the real one was banished not only from Springfield, but from the show itself. The real Seymour Skinner has never returned in a meaningful way. Martin Sheen's character is gone. The imposter is still there, still running the school, still calling Agnes mother, still being called Seymour by everyone around him. The show moved on. Armin kept the name. The reset button was pushed. The episode was treated as an embarrassment by the creators, a mistake the writers wished they had not made. But the twist is canon. Judge Snyder ordered people not to say the name Tamzarian. He did not order the name to not be true. The man is still Armin. The show is still lying about it. The fact that everyone has agreed to lie about it does not make the lie any less heavy. And this is where the theory reaches its sharpest point. The Principal and the Pauper is not just an episode about a character. It is an episode about the show itself. The Simpsons has been running for so long and has contradicted itself so often that the only way to keep the show going is for everyone, viewers viewers and writers alike to agree to pretend the contradictions are not there. The Tamzarian reveal made that pretending harder by making one of the contradictions undeniable. It forced the issue out into the open. The show then panicked and spent the next 25 years pretending it had not, which is, if you think about it, exactly what the town of Springfield does at the end of the episode. They all agree to never speak of it again. They decide, as a group, to live inside a comfortable lie, and the show, every single week, keeps them there. Skinner is the living proof that this is how Springfield works. A lie told long enough becomes the truth. A name worn long enough becomes yours. A performance repeated often enough becomes a life. That is what the show accidentally said in September 1997, and has been trying to take back ever since. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously.
Across the street from Skinner's classrooms, a few blocks over from the school, there is another house on Evergreen Terrace. It belongs to the cheerful man with a mustache who says hello over the fence every morning. He smiles too much. He forgives too easily. He prays before every meal. He is, by every visible measure, the nicest person in Springfield. The theory about him argues that this is precisely the problem, because kindness that extreme, that constant, that unwavering, might not be kindness at all. It might be something else, wearing a friendly face. And the show has shown us, more than once, what that face looks like when it slips. Section 6. Ned Flanders, The Devil Theory. In the Halloween special that aired on October 28, 1993, The Simpsons did something to Ned Flanders that the show has never really taken back.
The episode is Treehouse of Horror 4, and the opening segment is called The Devil and Homer Simpson. The setup is simple. Homer, alone in the break room at the power plant, reaches for his emergency donut and finds the box empty. He has already eaten it without remembering. Desperate and sugar-deprived, he announces to the empty room that he would sell his soul for a donut. The room is not empty. A voice answers him, and the creature that materializes in front of Homer, holding a contract and a flaming pen, is Ned Flanders. The Flanders standing there is not exactly Ned. He has horns, his skin is slightly red. His voice, still performed by Harry Shearer, has an edge to it that Ned's voice normally does not carry. But he is unmistakably Flanders. Same glasses, same sweater vest underneath, same mustache. And when Homer gasps at him and asks who he is, the Flanders in front of him smiles and says a line the show fans have been quoting for over 30 years. It is always the one you least expect. Homer signs the contract. He eats most of the donut. He figures out he can beat the deal by not finishing the donut, and then, predictably, eats the last bite in his sleep. The devil Flanders reappears to drag him to hell, Marge intervenes by producing an old wedding photo in court, and Homer is saved. The episode ends. The Halloween special moves on to the next segment. Ned Flanders returns the following week as Ned Flanders, smiling over the fence at Homer, offering to lend him the lawnmower, saying, "Heidi-ho, neighborino," and being treated by the show as exactly what he has always been, which is the cheerful, harmless, devout Christian next door. Except the show has never been able to put Ned fully back in the box after that moment. The line that Harry Shearer delivered in October 1993, "It is always the one you least expect," has become one of the most quoted lines in the entire Simpsons run, and it has become something fans point to as evidence of something larger, a piece of the show's soul showing through the cracks. The Devil Flanders theory is not that Ned is literally Satan, standing in the yard next door pretending to be a neighbor. Even the most committed fans of the theory do not argue that. What the theory argues is something more layered and more disturbing. The show has repeatedly shown, across 3 decades of episodes, that Ned Flanders has something frightening living just under his skin. and the show keeps returning to it over and over in ways that cannot be written off as coincidence. Start with the name. Ned, as a word, is an Old English term used in certain older texts to refer to the devil himself. It is not a common usage today, but it is not invented either. It was a real word used in real books for exactly that meaning. The show's writers are famous for burying references in the background of scenes, for picking names deliberately, for loading characters with details that reward close attention. Matt Groening named the other Simpsons after members of his own family. He named Ned, who is not based on anyone in his family, with a different kind of care. Ned is not a random choice, and the full name, Ned Flanders Jr., only makes that name more prominent. The show uses it rarely. When it does, it lands with weight. Then look at Harry Shearer's voice work. Shearer voices both characters. He is the regular Ned, the cheerful neighbor. He is also the devil in the Halloween segment. And once you know this, once you start listening for it, you can hear the shape of Ned's normal voice in the devil's voice in that scene. They are the same voice, lightly adjusted, the same vocal patterns, the same slight southern lilt, the same habit of ending sentences with a little upturn. The two characters share a throat, and Shearer, who is a famously careful voice actor, has chosen to play them both with the same basic instrument. The show wants us to hear the connection. They could have cast a different actor. They did not. Now look at what the show has done to Ned in non-canon segments across the years. The Halloween specials in Treehouse of Horror are not part of the main show. Their events do not count, but they are also, as fans have long noticed, a place where the show gets to show us what its characters would be like if the normal rules of the Simpsons universe did not apply. In Halloween specials, characters say things they would not say in the main show. They do things they would not do. The Halloween specials are sometimes where the show's subconscious gets to speak, and the show's subconscious has done very specific things to Ned Flanders. In Treehouse of Horror 5, which aired in 1994, the year after the Devil segment, there is a segment called Time and Punishment. Homer, using a makeshift time machine, accidentally rewrites history several times. On one of those trips, he returns to the present and finds the world has been remade. Springfield is spotless. Everyone is smiling. Everyone is polite. And looming over all of it, on giant screens all over the city, is the face of Ned Flanders, announcing himself as the unquestioned lord and master of the world. This Ned is not mean. He does not shout. He does not threaten. He speaks in the same cheerful voice the regular Ned uses. He smiles. But he has built, underneath that smile, a system of re-education centers where people who do not comply with his standards of good behavior are sent for forced correction, ending in lobotomies. He watches his citizens through cameras. He orders the Simpson family lobotomized the moment Homer escapes. Homer flees back into the time machine. The dystopia ends. The regular Ned returns next week, smiling over the fence. But that segment is sitting in the show's history forever. That version of Ned exists in the show's canon of non-canon possibilities. The writers chose, out of every character they could have turned into a dictator in an alternate timeline, to choose him. Not Mr. Burns, who is actually evil. Not Sideshow Bob, who is actually a criminal. Ned, the nicest person in Springfield. The writers looked at their cast and decided that the person whose tyranny would be most unsettling is the one who never seems to be tyrannizing anyone. The theory reads, both of these segments, The Devil in 4 and The Dictator in 5, as the show showing us the same truth from two angles. Ned Flanders has something in him that is not what it appears to be. When the regular rules of the show are suspended, when the writers get to show us the shape underneath the surface, what comes out is the devil or the God King. Never a slightly grumpier Ned, never a Ned who cheats on his taxes or yells at his kids. The alternate Neds are always at the extreme end of something that looks like control or dominance or the corruption of a goodness that was never quite real. Now apply that reading back to the main show. Why is Ned Flanders so relentlessly good? Think about the texture of his goodness. It is not the goodness of a regular, kind person. Regular, kind people have bad days. They snap. They hold grudges. They get bitter. They forget to be nice. Ned does not. Ned is cheerful at 5 a.m. Ned forgives every insult the moment it is said. Ned prays for people who have wronged him. Ned never stops. His goodness is uncanny in its steadiness. It is the goodness of a machine. It has no off button. And when the show has shown us what happens when that machine does, briefly, fail, the results are intense in a way the show plays for comedy, but that the theory reads as evidence. In the Season 8 episode Hurricane Nettie, which aired in December 1996, Ned's house is destroyed by a hurricane. The whole town comes together to rebuild it. They do a terrible job. The new house falls apart the moment Ned steps inside, and Ned, in a moment the show has never quite matched since, finally breaks. He shouts at the entire town. He calls out Homer by name for being a bad neighbor. He insults Moe. He tells Reverend Lovejoy that he has never liked his sermons. He tells Marge her cooking is bad. For about 40 seconds of screen time, Ned Flanders is a man saying what he actually thinks, and what he actually thinks is brutal. He checks himself into a mental institution after that outburst. The doctors trace the problem back to his childhood. Ned was raised by hippie parents who never disciplined him, and when his behavior became unmanageable, they sent him to a doctor who put him through something called the University of Minnesota Spankological Protocol, which was 8 straight months of continuous spanking. The spanking worked. Ned came out of it compliant, agreeable, endlessly patient. He has been that way ever since. The theory reads Hurricane Nettie as the closest the show has ever come to showing us the real Ned, the man underneath the conditioning. What is underneath is angry. It is sharp. It is full of opinions and judgments he has been swallowing for decades. And when the conditioning slips, even for less than a minute, what comes out is frightening enough that the show sends him to a psychiatric hospital to have the conditioning restored. The goodness is a cage. Without the cage, the thing inside is not safe to be around. Combine this with the devil segment and the dictator segment, and the theory starts to cohere. Ned is not good. Ned is contained. The containment is what the town sees. The containment is the sweater vest, the mustache, the prayers, the cheerful greetings over the fence. Underneath the containment is something with teeth. The show has shown us those teeth in bits and pieces, in non-canon segments, and in rare canon moments for 3 decades. There is one more detail the theory loves, and it is small but hard to ignore. In the Season 7 episode Bart the Fink, Ned's house has a basement. The basement has a special room. In the Season 10 episode Viva Ned Flanders, we learn that Ned is 60 years old, far older than anyone in Springfield would guess from looking at him. He looks younger than he should. He has aged strangely. This detail has been played with in more than one episode. The man is older than the town suspects. The cheerful neighbor who smiles over the fence has been smiling over fences for longer than any normal man would have been doing it. put the pieces together. An unnaturally cheerful man who never ages the way he should, whose goodness is the result of forced conditioning in childhood, whose eruptions of truth produce something alarming, whose name is an Old English word for the devil, who the show has cast as the devil in its most famous Halloween segment, who the show has cast as a smiling dictator in another Halloween segment, whose voice actor also voices the devil, and whose next-door neighbor has been the luckiest and most unlucky man in Springfield, depending on the day. The theory does not need to argue that Ned is literally Satan. It only needs to argue that the show has been telling us, in every non-canon segment where the rules come off, in every rare canon moment where the containment slips, that Ned Flanders is not what he appears to be. The cheerful exterior is a performance. The performance is what keeps the town safe. And somewhere under the performance is whatever the show keeps reaching for every time it wants to show us Ned with the mask off. This reading also gives the neighbor dynamic a new weight. Homer, who torments Ned daily, who mocks him, who steals from him, who sleeps on his lawn and uses his tools and returns them broken, is essentially poking something that could be terrible at him if it ever decided to stop being patient. The joke of the show is that Ned never stops being patient. The deeper joke, the theory says, is that if Ned ever did, Homer would not survive it. Every morning Homer walks outside, waves at his neighbor, insults him casually, and walks away unharmed. He is winning a lottery he does not know he is in. The devil in Treehouse of Horror 4 tells Homer directly, "It is always the one you least expect." The line was written for a Halloween joke. It has become, over the decades, one of the load-bearing sentences of the entire show. Fans quote it. They repeat it. They point to it as the moment the show whispered something true in a Halloween costume. The man who smiles over the fence might be the nicest person in Springfield, or he might be the thing the town has agreed not to look at too closely. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And once you start looking at the town that way, once you start asking which of Springfield's familiar faces are hiding something the show has quietly told us about, the questions start reaching into stranger territory. The kids at the school, the boys in the background of every classroom scene. There is a particular little boy who sits in Miss Hoover's class with Lisa, who says things nobody understands, whose father is the chief of police, whose mother is a woman named Sarah. His name is Ralph. He does not look like his father. He does not look like his mother. He looks unmistakably like someone else who works at the same station his father runs, and the show has been winking at it for years, and in recent seasons, the winks have become something much closer to a confession. Section 7. Ralph Wiggum, the Lou Paternity Theory. Ralph Wiggum has blue eyes, blonde-ish hair, and a round, soft face. He is the son, by all public accounts, of Clancy Wiggum, the chief of police of Springfield, and Sarah Wiggum, Clancy's wife. Clancy has jet black hair, a round, pig-like nose, and the kind of heavy, drooping features the show has used to signal his general dimness for decades. Sarah has brown hair. She is mousy, thin-lined, and only appears occasionally across the show's run. Ralph looks, to a quiet but noticeable degree, like neither of them. He does, however, look very much like Officer Lou. Lou is one of the two officers who serve under Chief Wiggum. He has appeared in hundreds of episodes since the show's earliest seasons. He is the straight man of the police department, the one who delivers dry observations while Wiggum eats donuts in the patrol car. Lou has thin, stringy hair. He has a narrow face. He has, if you watch for it, features that echo in Ralph's face the way features echo between a father and a son. Fans noticed this years ago. The theory started as a small observation, the kind of thing people mentioned in passing in comment threads and Reddit posts. Ralph does not look like Wiggum. Ralph looks like Lou. For most of the show's history, that was all it was. A joke. A thing you could point to in freeze frames. Nothing more. But in recent seasons, the show itself has started engaging with the theory directly, in ways that have pushed it from fan speculation towards something the show is openly winking at. The clearest example came in season 36, in an episode called The Last Man Expanding, which aired in early 2025. The premise of the episode involves Chief Wiggum getting his hands on a weight loss drug, a parody of the real-world injections that had become popular around that time. The drug works. Wiggum sheds pounds. He feels better. He starts talking to his officers about how his whole life has improved. His marriage is doing better. His energy is up. He even mentions to Lou and Eddie that he and Sarah might try for another child. And then, in the middle of that conversation, Wiggum pauses. He looks at Lou, and he says, casually, almost offhand, that his son Ralph looks a lot like him. He means Lou. The line is delivered as if it has just occurred to him. The show does not then have Wiggum put the pieces together. It does not have him realize what he has said. It does not have Sarah walk in and confess. But the camera at that moment does something very specific. It cuts to a tight close-up of Lou's face. Lou's eyes go wide. His mouth is slightly open. He does not speak. He does not move. He just holds the expression of a man who has just heard something he hoped would never be said out loud. And the show holds on that face long enough for the viewer to understand exactly what is happening. That is as close to a canon confirmation as the show has ever come on this theory. Not quite a confession, not quite a reveal, just a wink that lasts about 3 seconds and tells you everything. And it is not the only one. A year earlier, in season 34, an episode called Lisa the Boy Scout took a slightly different approach. That episode was built as a parody of dramatic, melodramatic storytelling, and in one of its segments, it openly confirmed that Eddie, the other officer under Wiggum, was Ralph's real father. Sarah was shown arguing with Wiggum about the betrayal. Wiggum was shown reacting with hurt and anger. It played out like a soap opera reveal, complete with the emotional beats. And then the segment pulled back and revealed it had been a parody of the kind of overdramatic, poorly plotted prestige television the writers were making fun of. None of it was canon. Eddie being Ralph's father was a joke, in the strictest sense. The next week, the show went back to treating the Wiggum family the way it always had, but the damage, if you want to call it that, was already done. The show had now played with 2 different paternity options for Ralph in the space of 2 years. In one version, the father was Eddie. In another, the hint pointed at Lou. In both cases, the answer was definitely not Clancy Wiggum. The show was, in its own sideways way, telling the audience that whatever the real answer is, Ralph did not come from his chief of police father. Somebody else was in the house. Somebody else was in Sarah's life. And the show has been leaving breadcrumbs for years about who that somebody is. To understand why this theory has such staying power, you have to look at how Ralph is drawn, and how that drawing compares to the 2 men standing in the background of every police station scene. Ralph's face is round, yes, so is Wiggum's, but the roundness is different. Wiggum is round in the way of a man who has been eating donuts for 30 years. His roundness is a softness sitting on top of a recognizable bone structure. Ralph's roundness is different. It is the roundness of a small child, yes, but the features underneath that roundness, the shape of his eyes, the set of his mouth, the thinness of his hair, do not match his father's. They match Lou's. Lou has that same thinness of hair. He has that same narrowness of feature behind his cheeks. He has, And this is the detail fans keep coming back to, the same general coloring. Lou is not exactly blonde, but he is lighter than Wiggum, and his coloring carries over to Ralph in a way Wiggum's never has. Sarah Wiggum is harder to read. She has brown hair, a thin face, and she barely appears in the show. The few times she does show up, she is drawn as a quiet, slightly absent woman who does not engage much with her husband. In the Season 8 episode A Millhouse Divided, which deals with the Van Houten family's marriage collapsing, the Wiggums are shown briefly at a dinner party, and Sarah's body language with Clancy is not the body language of a woman who is deeply in love with her husband. She is polite, she is present, she is not warm. Fans have looked at this scene, and others like it, and read Sarah as a woman who has been, for some time, living a life that does not quite match the one she presents to the neighbors. The theory that grows out of all of this is not cruel toward Sarah. It is not trying to make her into a villain. What the theory argues is that the Wiggum marriage has been quietly dysfunctional for longer than the show has ever acknowledged, and that Ralph is the living evidence of that dysfunction. Sarah had a relationship, or an affair, or a single encounter with one of the two men her husband works with every day. She never told Clancy. She raised the resulting child as his. And Clancy, being Clancy, has never figured it out, because figuring it out would require him to notice that his son does not look like him. And Clancy is not the kind of man who notices that kind of thing until it is pointed out to him with a camera cut. This also gives a new shape to Ralph's character. Ralph is, by every measure the show has used for him, cognitively slower than the other children in Lisa's class. He says things that do not connect to the conversation. He hugs walls. He eats things he should not eat. He once referred to himself as a unicorn. The show has used him for this kind of humor since the first season, and it has never explained why he is the way he is. Various episodes have hinted at possible causes. In the Season 18 episode, Moms I'd Like to Forget, there is a flashback showing Chief Wiggum accidentally dropping baby Ralph on his head at a 4th of July fireworks show. That scene has been cited as a possible explanation for Ralph's mental state, a head injury in infancy. But the show also plays with other explanations. In the Season 25 episode, Brick Like Me, Ralph appears with full sentences and clear thinking in a world made of building blocks. In other dream sequences and alternate reality segments, Ralph is shown to be surprisingly capable when he is removed from his usual setting. The implication fans have drawn is that Ralph is not born slow. Something happened to him. The head injury is one possible cause. Another is that the environment he was raised in, the tension in the Wiggum house, the quiet lies his mother carries, the father who is not his father, shaped him into a child who deals with the world by disengaging from it. None of this is said out loud by the show. The show is not going to tell us, in any direct way, that Sarah had an affair with Lou, and that Clancy has never figured it out. That is not the kind of story The Simpsons tells in its canon episodes. But the show has built the pieces, laid them out across 3 decades, and then, in Season 36, it put Wiggum and Lou in the same frame, and had Wiggum say the words out loud without realizing what he was saying. The camera did the rest. And the theory connects, in a quiet way, to a pattern the show has built elsewhere. Springfield is full of family secrets that the families themselves do not know. Marge does not know that her mother almost married Mr. Burns. Homer does not know about every one of his father's illegitimate children. The Simpsons, as a show, treats family as something that looks stable from the outside and is quietly unstable underneath. The Wiggums fit that pattern. They look, from the outside, like a normal police family. A chief, a wife, a little boy. Inside, Ralph is not Clancy's. Sarah is not happy. Clancy has no idea, and the 2 officers standing behind Clancy in every shot have been carrying, between them, a secret that only the animators and the writers have been in on for years. The theory gives Ralph's strangeness a root system. He is not just a funny child who says strange things. He is a funny child who says strange things because the house he lives in is built on something the adults in it will not acknowledge. The strangeness is his way of handling that. The blankness is protection. The non sequiturs are how he gets through the day. He is loved. Clancy loves him. Sarah loves him. Lou, whether he knows or not, watches him sometimes across a room in a way the show has drawn on more than one occasion with unusual care. Ralph is not neglected. He is simply the child of a family that has agreed, silently, to live around a truth nobody wants to say. And when Wiggum said it out loud in season 36, by accident, without thinking, Lou's face in the next shot told you everything the show had been unable to say for 30 years. Ralph's existence, the theory suggests, is the longest-running quiet lie in Springfield. The town has been letting it stand. The father has been letting it stand. The mother has been letting it stand. Lou, most of all, has been letting it stand. He puts on his uniform. He shows up for work. He stands next to his chief. He watches the boy grow up in glimpses. He says nothing. The show respects the silence, mostly. Once in a while, it cuts to his face. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Ralph lives inside a lie that everyone around him has agreed not to name. But there is another character in Springfield whose life is built on a different kind of unspoken truth. And this one is stranger, because it involves two characters who have hated each other for decades, who have tried to kill each other, who have been enemies from the very first season, and who, underneath all of it, may be pulled toward a bond neither of them has ever been fully able to admit. One of them is a 10-year-old boy's older sister. The other has been trying to murder that boy since the day they met. Section 8. Sideshow Bob. The Bob is Lisa's true counterpart theory. Sideshow Bob has been trying to kill Bart Simpson since 1990. Across more than 15 major episodes and dozens of smaller appearances, he has planned elaborate murder schemes, faked his own death, attempted to run for mayor, rigged elections, stolen nuclear weapons, carried out revenge plots from inside prison, and planted bombs across 3 states. The show has built his character around this obsession. Bob hates Bart. Bart fears Bob. Their dynamic is the engine of every Sideshow Bob episode. But across all those episodes, in small ways at first and larger ways later, the show has been quietly doing something else with Sideshow Bob. It has been building a second relationship, one the show has never advertised, one that has grown in the background of the Bart plots, and one that the theory at the center of this section argues is the real story of Sideshow Bob's entire arc. His real connection in the Simpson family is not Bart, it is Lisa. Start with who Sideshow Bob actually is in terms of background. Robert Underdunk Terwilliger went to Yale University. He has a PhD. He speaks with a careful, cultured accent that is modeled on the voice Kelsey Grammer used as Frasier Crane on Cheers and Frasier. He quotes Shakespeare. He can recite the entire HMS Pinafore from memory, a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. He reads classical literature. He studied theater. He is, by every measure, the most educated and culturally refined character in Springfield. He ended up working as a sidekick on a children's television program because he needed a job. And because of that job, he ended up spending years of his life getting hit with pies and shot out of cannons for the amusement of a clown he believed was his intellectual inferior. His original crime, the one that got him arrested for the first time in the season 1 episode Krusty Gets Busted, was not random. Bob framed Krusty for armed robbery so he could take over the show and turn it from a lowbrow comedy program into something educational for the children of Springfield. His first act as the new host was to read great literature to kids on air. His motive was not money, it was cultural uplift. He wanted to raise the level of what the children of the town were being exposed to. His plan was stopped by Bart, who figured out that the man in the Krusty suit had bigger feet than the real Krusty, and Bob went to prison for a crime whose core impulse was, at root, educational. Now look at who lives in Springfield alongside him. Lisa Simpson is 8 years old. She plays saxophone. She reads books that are years beyond her grade level. She is a vegetarian. She is a Buddhist. She cares about classical music in a town that listens to Homer's barbershop quartet. She cries at concerts. She argues with her teachers about curriculum. She is, in her own small way, the only other character in Springfield who would actually want the kind of television show Bob tried to create when he framed Krusty. Bob's crime, the one that started the entire Sideshow Bob storyline, was motivated by a desire to give children exactly the kind of programming Lisa would have chosen for herself. The show did not put these two characters in the same room in a meaningful way for many years. When Bob returned in episode after episode, his focus stayed on Bart. Bart was the target. Lisa was a supporting player, helping her brother escape, finding the clue, cracking the code. She was a sidekick to her own brother's survival. But the writers kept sneaking small moments into those episodes. Moments where Bob looked at Lisa a beat longer than he needed to. Moments where Lisa recognized a reference Bob had made that nobody else in the room would have caught. Moments where the two of them, briefly, operated on the same intellectual channel. Then, in season 25, the show stopped being subtle about it. The episode is called The Man Who Grew Too Much, and it aired in March 2014. The plot involves Sideshow Bob getting out of prison and taking a job as a volunteer subject at a genetic research laboratory. He rises through the ranks quickly because he is the smartest person in the building. He starts injecting himself with animal DNA, gaining various superhuman abilities. The sci-fi mechanics of the episode are strange and mostly abandoned by the end. The reason the episode matters, for this theory, is what happens when Lisa arrives at the lab on a school field trip and the two of them are put together as lab partners. They bond, not a little, not reluctantly, genuinely, warmly, over hours of shared work. They discuss literature. They discuss science. They finish each other's thoughts. Lisa, who has spent her entire life unable to find another person in Springfield who operates on her level, finds herself in a conversation with a grown man who understands every reference she makes and can raise it with references she has only read about. Bob, who has spent his entire adult life as an outsider in Springfield, finds himself in a conversation with an 8-year-old who is the only person in town who has read the books he loves. The episode plays the connection with unusual seriousness. It is not a joke. It is not undercut by a punchline. It is two characters, a grown man and a little girl, who recognize in each other a kind of kinship that neither has been able to find anywhere else. And when Bob, later in the episode, has a chance to kill the Simpson family and finally resolve his decades-long grudge, he cannot do it. The connection with Lisa has made him, for the first time in his criminal career, unable to complete a plan against the people he has spent his life trying to destroy. She did not ask him to stop. She did not beg him. She simply became a person he knew, and knowing her changed what he could bring himself to do. The episode ends. Bob goes back to prison. The show moves on. And the writers, to the frustration of many fans, never really follow up on the Lisa and Bob dynamic in the same depth again. But the Halloween specials kept returning to it. In Treehouse of Horror 34, which aired in November 2023, a segment called 8 rewrites the ending of the Season 5 classic Cape Fear. In the original episode, Sideshow Bob follows the Simpson family to a houseboat where they have been placed in witness protection, and Bart escapes death by getting Bob to sing the entire HMS Pinafore before killing him, stalling long enough for the family to escape. The show has treated that as canon for 30 years. 8 imagines a version of the story where Bob sees through the stall. He kills Bart in front of Lisa. He is caught, imprisoned, and sentenced to life. But the segment does not end there. It follows the Lisa who watched her brother murdered, and it shows her becoming, decades later, a serial killer herself. The trauma of losing Bart does not make her a survivor. It makes her a darker mirror of the man who killed him. She becomes, in every meaningful sense, Sideshow Bob. That is the segment in full. The Lisa who loses Bart becomes Bob. And the theory reads this not as a random Halloween twist, but as the show finally saying out loud what it has been circling for years. Lisa and Bob are made of the same material. The only difference between them is what life has done to that material. Lisa, raised in a loving family with a brother she actually loves, turns that same mind toward art and ethics and trying to save the world. Bob, raised in a different kind of environment, pushed into a career he hated, abused by Krusty for years, turned that same mind toward revenge and manipulation and the slow corruption of everything around him. They started from the same place. They ended up at opposite ends of it. This is why Bob's focus on Bart has always felt slightly off-key. Bart is a prankster. Bart is not an intellectual match for Bob. The reason Bob hates Bart is simple. Bart foiled his first crime. Bart put him in prison. Bart is the obstacle. But the obstacle is not the connection. The connection, the real character pairing the show has been building, is with the sister. Bart is the body in the way. Lisa is the person Bob keeps finding himself drawn to, across episode after episode, even when the plot of the moment is him trying to kill her brother. There are smaller moments fans have pulled out of the show across the years that support this. In the Season 7 episode, Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming, when Bob is threatening to blow up Springfield with a nuclear bomb, his final conversation before being caught involves him confessing that television has ruined culture and that he wants to save children from it. Lisa, not Bart, is the one who understands what he is saying. She disagrees with him, but she understands the argument. Bart is confused. Lisa is engaged. She is the only person in Springfield who can actually debate Bob on his own terms. In the Season 5 episode, Cape Fear itself, the moment where Bart asks Bob to sing the whole of HMS Pinafore works because Bob genuinely loves the music enough that he cannot resist. Lisa, earlier in the same episode, is the one who recognizes that Bob is the kind of man for whom that kind of stalling tactic would work. She knows him well enough to identify his cultural weaknesses, because she shares them. Bart would have thought of something else. Bart's stalling tactic would have involved a prank or a trick. Lisa's understanding of Bob is specific to Lisa, because she and Bob are, at a certain level, the same. The theory lands on this. Sideshow Bob is not the villain of the Simpson family. He is the shadow of one specific Simpson, and the show has been showing us which one. He is what Lisa might become if the world that has refused to give her a place finally breaks her patience with it. He is the version of her that stopped trying to change Springfield and started trying to punish it. Every time Bob looks at Lisa in those episodes, the theory says, he is looking at what he was before his own patience ran out. And every time Lisa looks at Bob, she is looking at what she might be if she ever stops choosing the harder path. She has not stopped yet. She will probably never stop. That is who Lisa is. But the show has put the possibility in front of her in the body of a grown man with a Yale degree and a murder record. And it has done so for a reason. The two of them are mirrored. The show knows it. The writers know it. The animators know it. The Halloween specials keep writing it down because the regular show cannot quite figure out how to say it. Bob will probably keep returning to Springfield. He will keep getting out of prison. He will keep building revenge plots against Bart. And Lisa will keep being the one who sees through them, who figures out the clue, who outthinks the man who is trying to kill her brother. She will keep winning those fights. But somewhere in those fights, the show has been suggesting, there is a recognition between the two of them that runs deeper than the rivalry with Bart, and it will never be said out loud in the main show, and it will only be visible in the Halloween segments where the rules come off. Sideshow Bob is not Bart's villain. He is Lisa's possibility. The show has been telling us that for 30 years. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Bob is one kind of double for a Simpson family member. There is another double, closer to home, who has been standing in plain sight for the entire run of the show. He wears the same size clothes as Homer. He has the same body type. His face, from the right angle, is almost indistinguishable from Homer's face, only painted. The show has joked about this for decades. And the theory about him asks a question nobody in Springfield has ever thought to ask, which is why two men who look almost exactly alike, who live in the same small town, who have known each other since childhood, have never once considered that they might actually be related. Section 9. Krusty the Clown, the hidden half-brother theory. Take a close look at Krusty the Clown sometime. Not in costume, not in his full performing mode, with the makeup and the hair and the green collar. Just the shape of his body, the build, the height, the slump of his shoulders when he is tired, the way his gut hangs when he sits down. Then look at Homer Simpson. They are the same man. The show has known this from the very beginning. Krusty and Homer share, underneath Krusty's paint and wig, the same basic body. Same yellow skin, of course, like everyone else in Springfield. But beyond the skin, the same frame, same height, same weight, same pear-shaped build, same round face, same hooded eyes, same weak chin. The animators have been drawing this similarity for more than 30 years, and the show has been making jokes about it for almost as long. In the season 6 episode, Homie the Clown, which aired in February 1995, Homer enrolls in clown college and begins performing as Krusty in ads and appearances. The joke of the whole episode is that he can pass as Krusty without anyone noticing. Not just his family, not just strangers. Mobsters who are hunting Krusty mistake Homer for him and nearly kill him. A little boy at a birthday party looks up at Homer in the Krusty costume and believes him completely. The resemblance is not slight. It is so strong that the show can build an entire plot around it. Matt Groening, the creator of the show, has been asked about this over the years, and he has admitted that in the very early development of the show, Krusty and Homer were going to be the same character. The plan was that Krusty was going to be Homer's secret life, a kind of double identity. Homer would be this bumbling nuclear plant worker by day, and at night or on weekends, he would put on the makeup and become Krusty the Clown. The idea got dropped before the show aired. Krusty became his own character. Homer stayed Homer. And the story went that Bart, who worships Krusty, worships him partly because Krusty is everything Homer is not. A man who made something of himself. A man who got out of his ordinary life. A man who is famous and admired. But the body stayed the same, the resemblance stayed, and the show has kept poking at it in joke after joke across season after season, as if the writers could not quite leave the original idea alone. Now look at Krusty's family history. In the season 3 episode, Like Father Like Clown, which aired in October 1991, the show tells Krusty's real origin story for the first time. Krusty's real name is Herschel Krustofsky. His father is Rabbi Hyman Krustofsky, a strict and respected rabbi who wanted his son to follow him into the same career. Herschel, as a young man, wanted to be a clown. He wanted to make people laugh. His father saw clowning as frivolous, embarrassing, beneath the family name. The two of them fought about it. Eventually, Herschel left home and became Krusty. His father did not speak to him for years. In the episode, Bart and Lisa help reconcile them. That is Krusty's official family. A rabbi father, a mother who is rarely mentioned. Nothing in the show has ever directly contradicted that story. But the theory this section is about argues that the official story may not be the complete story. Specifically, that somewhere along the line, the Krustovsky family picked up a connection to the Simpson family that neither side of that connection has ever figured out. Look at Abraham Simpson, Homer's father. Abe is, by any honest accounting, a man who has gotten around. The show has been showing us this for decades. In the season 7 episode Mother Simpson, we learn that Homer has a half-brother, Herb Powell, from a relationship Abe had with a woman at a carnival years before he married Mona, Homer's mother. Herb is, in every meaningful sense, Homer's older brother, raised by a different mother. Abe never knew about him until Homer tracked him down. In the season 15 episode, The Regina Monologues, and other episodes, additional partners and possible children of Abe's are hinted at. The show has made it clear, repeatedly, that Abraham Simpson, in his younger years, was a man with a lot of stories and not a lot of consistency in his romantic life. He has been credited with multiple illegitimate children across the show's run, and the show has placed Abe, in flashback after flashback, in the middle of 20th century America, in exactly the kind of settings where an affair could happen. He was a soldier in World War II. He worked in traveling jobs. He ran a boarding house. He lived in cities before settling down. He has told stories of his younger days that are either entirely made up or entirely shocking, and the show is chosen, deliberately, to keep that ambiguity alive. Now ask a simple question. If Abe had multiple illegitimate children, and the show has established that canonically, then how sure are we that we have met all of them? The theory proposes that we have not. Specifically, that at some point in Abe's younger years, he had a relationship with Rabbi Krustovsky's wife. That Krusty, whose age the show has placed in his 50s and 60s across different episodes, was the result. That Hyman Krustovsky raised Krusty as his own son, which is why Krusty has always identified as Jewish and has always treated the rabbi as his father, but that biologically, the man who fathered Krusty was not the rabbi, it was Abraham Simpson, which would make Krusty and Homer half-brothers, which would explain the body, the same frame, the same yellow skin, the same slump, the same build, genetic. Passed down from the same father through two different mothers to two men who have never figured out that they are connected by anything other than Bart's obsession with one of them. The theory has more to work with. Krusty's temperament is, in many ways, a carnival mirror version of Homer's. Both men are greedy, both men are lazy in ways they try to hide, both men are surprisingly sentimental when you catch them at the right moment. Both men love food to a degree that has damaged their health. Both men have a particular weakness for gambling, for investments that sound too good to be true, for any scheme that promises money without work. Homer has blown through thousands of dollars on bad bets in episodes like Saturdays of Thunder and 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish. Krusty has been shown as a compulsive gambler who once lost so much money at the track that he had to sell his network for pennies. They make the same mistakes. They fall for the same traps. They have, underneath the different careers, the same instincts. And they are drawn to each other. Not romantically, not as friends exactly, but there is a specific, repeated pattern across the show where Homer and Krusty end up in each other's lives in ways that would not make sense for two people who barely know each other. Krusty has come to the Simpson house multiple times for dinner. Homer has gone to Krusty for advice. They have, in various episodes, ended up on vacations together, in business together, in crisis together. In the season 6 episode Homie the Clown, the two of them meet as Homer is training to become a Krusty stand-in, and the meeting has the texture of two men who already somehow know each other, or who are related to each other without being aware. There is one more piece of the puzzle, and it is the strangest. In the season 4 episode A Streetcar Named Marge, there is a brief background character named Guy Incognito. He appears for about 5 seconds. He is sitting in a pub. Homer walks in, sees him, and stares in disbelief because Guy Incognito looks exactly like Homer. Same body, same face, same clothes almost, same hair. The only real difference is that Guy Incognito has a thin mustache and slightly more refined posture. Homer says a line about how this man could be his twin. Guy Incognito, in a British accent, denies that there is any resemblance, and then the scene moves on. A related fan theory proposes that Guy Incognito was Krusty in disguise. The suggestion is that Krusty, for reasons the show never explains, sometimes moves through the world as a slightly different version of himself when he is not performing. And the character design of Guy Incognito is a clue to what Krusty actually looks like underneath the paint. If you accept that connection, then the number of men in the show who look like Homer Simpson has grown by 1, and all 3 of them, Homer, Krusty, and Guy Incognito, start to feel less like a running joke and more like a breadcrumb trail leading to the same father. The hidden half-brother theory gives the whole Homer and Krusty dynamic a different weight. Bart's worship of Krusty, which has been a running element of the show since the first season, becomes something else. He is not just worshiping his favorite television clown, he is worshiping a man who may be his uncle. The pattern of Bart identifying more with Krusty than with his own father, across episode after episode, becomes a quiet family story rather than a pop culture one. A boy reaches, in his hero worship, toward the man in his father's bloodline who actually made something of himself. And the father he ignores, Homer, is the closer blood tie he does not realize he has. It also gives Krusty's strange generosity to Bart a new shape. Krusty has, on multiple occasions, done things for Bart that no ordinary celebrity would do for an ordinary child fan. He has let Bart and Lisa into his life. He has taken their advice. He has, in moments, treated them almost as family members rather than as children in his audience. In the Season 3 episode, Like Father, Like Clown, Krusty lets Bart help him reconcile with his estranged father. That is a very personal thing to invite a child into. The children are not just fans. They are, in some way, already inside the circle. The theory says they may be closer to that circle than the show has ever admitted. They may be his niece and nephew. The show will never confirm this. It is the kind of theory that works specifically because the show has never closed the door on it. Every time Krusty and Homer share a scene, every time they stand next to each other, every time an animator draws the two of them in the same frame and makes the resemblance unmissable, the theory gets another piece of evidence. The show has been drawing those scenes for 35 years. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. And once you start thinking about Springfield this way, once you notice how many of its strange little details fit together into patterns the show has never officially named, you start asking a larger question. Why does this town work the way it works? Why do its people never age? Why do its buildings move? Why do characters die and then come back? Why does its geography never stay the same? Why does time pass outside the town but freeze inside it? The answer to that question is the theory that contains all the others, and it argues that Springfield itself, the town, the setting, the world every character in this video lives inside, is not really a town at all. Section 10. Springfield itself. The Springfield effect. There is a question that has haunted The Simpsons since the very first season, and the show has made a running joke out of never answering it. What state is Springfield in? The answer changes constantly. In one episode, the Simpsons drive to the ocean in an afternoon, which would put Springfield on a coast. In another episode, they drive to Mexico just as easily, which would put it near the southern border. In another, they take a short trip to Canada, which would put it in the north. The family has, at various points, been described as living in a town that has snow in winter, palm trees on certain streets, mountains on the horizon, and flat prairie all around them. None of these things can be true at once, but in Springfield, they all are. Matt Groening eventually gave an answer to the state question. He said, in various interviews over the years, that Springfield is in the state of Springfield, which is not a real state. Which is, more than anything, the show's creator telling the audience that the question has no answer because the answer was never the point. That refusal to pin down the location is the starting point for what a lot of fans call the Springfield effect. It is a theory that tries to explain in one sweep all the inconsistencies the show has built up over its run. And the theory, once you accept it, reframes everything in the show. Homer's age, Bart's age, the characters who have died and come back, the buildings that move between episodes, the geography that shifts depending on the plot, the strange, frozen quality of a town where nothing ever really changes no matter how many decades pass outside its borders. The theory goes like this. Springfield does not exist in normal time. It does not exist in normal space. It is a town that sits slightly outside the rules that govern the rest of the world. The outside world, the one the viewers live in, moves forward. Years pass, presidents change, technology advances, songs that were new become old, culture shifts. And Springfield somehow both notices these changes and does not. The show references current events constantly. Homer has a cell phone. The kids use the internet. Lisa has been seen with a smartphone in later seasons. The town is plugged into the world. But the town itself and the people inside it do not age. Bart has been 10 years old since 1989. Lisa has been 8. Maggie has been a baby. Homer has been in his late 30s. The world around them has moved almost 40 years forward. They have not moved at all. The theory says this is not a mistake. The show is not being lazy. The town is built this way on purpose, and the town itself does not realize it. Consider the evidence. In the season 11 episode Behind the Laughter, which aired in May 2000, the show frames itself as a fictional documentary about the Simpson family, as if they were real people starring in a television show. The episode goes along with the joke for its whole runtime. The family talks about how fame affected them. They describe their rise, their struggles, their eventual reconciliation. The whole thing is treated like a spoof of celebrity documentaries. But buried inside the spoof is an admission the rest of the show has never quite let itself make. The Simpsons are characters. They are aware in this one episode that they are being watched, that their lives are not, in the normal sense, real. The theory reads Behind the Laughter not as a one-off joke, but as a leak. A moment when the town's self-awareness slipped through the show's usual rules, and the characters said out loud what the structure of the show has been implying all along. They are inside something, and that something has edges. There is more evidence in the way characters in Springfield die and come back. Ned Flanders died in the season 11 episode Alone Again, Natura Diddly. She stayed dead. Ned Flanders remarried. The show treated it as a real loss for the character. But other deaths in Springfield have not stuck at all. Mr. Burns has been killed multiple times in Halloween episodes, and returns the following week. Various minor characters have died and reappeared without explanation. Frank Grimes died in the season 8 episode Homer's Enemy, and his funeral is treated with a solemnity that is almost immediately broken by Homer falling asleep and the crowd laughing. Grimes' son appeared years later seeking revenge. Grimes himself has been referenced in ways that suggest the town's memory of him is flexible, not fixed. And then there is Hans Moleman. Hans Moleman has been killed on screen dozens of times across the run of the show. He has been blown up, he has been crushed, he has been thrown through windshields, he has fallen from great heights, he has been buried. In the season 11 episode, Hello Gutter, Hello Fatter, the show shows several Hans Molemans standing together in a room, suggesting that every time one of them dies, another one takes his place. The show has made this a running joke. The theory treats it as more than a joke. In a town that operates outside normal time, death does not mean what it means in the outside world. It is a temporary condition. Characters who die can reappear because the town does not fully process death in the way a real place would. The geography tells the same story. The layout of Springfield has never been consistent. Moe's Tavern has moved, relative to the Simpson house, across different episodes. The power plant has been shown in different parts of town depending on the plot. The school has moved. Even the Simpson house, the most central location in the entire show, has changed shape over time. Rooms have appeared and disappeared. The layout of the inside of the house has shifted. In some episodes there is an attic. In others, there is not. In some episodes, there is a basement that goes deep underground. In others, the basement is just a small storage room. If Springfield were a real place, these inconsistencies would be mistakes. In the Springfield effect theory, they are features. The town adjusts itself to the needs of the moment. It is not a fixed location. It is a place that rearranges its own architecture to fit whatever story is being told. Buildings move because the town lets them move. Streets realign because the town does not enforce the rules of streets the way a real town would. Characters go along with this. They do not notice. Homer drives to work every day, and the route does not confuse him, even though the route is not the same from one episode to the next. Marge goes shopping at a grocery store that has been in different places on different days. Bart rides a skateboard through a town whose layout no human mind could actually keep straight. They do not notice because they cannot. They are part of the town. The town is inside them as much as they are inside it. Its rules are their rules. The theory gives this setup a name that fans have used for years: the sliding timeline. It is the idea that time in Springfield slides along with the real world's calendar without actually passing for the characters. If an episode aired in 1995, Homer could remember the 1970s as his young adulthood. If an episode aired in 2020, Homer could remember the 1990s as his young adulthood. His past is not fixed. It moves with the show's present. Whatever decade the show needs him to have grown up in, that is the decade he grew up in. His memories of his own life are fluid. This shows up most clearly in the episode That 90s Show from season 19, which aired in January 2008. The episode retells Homer and Marge's young adulthood as happening in the 1990s. In earlier episodes, their young adulthood was shown as happening in the 1970s and 1980s. The show simply updated itself to keep Homer and Marge roughly the right age for a contemporary audience. Fans were furious. The episode broke what continuity had existed. But the theory absorbs this too. That 90s show is not a continuity error. It is the town adjusting. The timeline slides when it needs to slide, and the characters slide with it, and nobody inside the story is able to notice because their memories adjust at the same time. The most powerful thing the Springfield effect does is it absorbs every other theory in this video. Homer in a coma. Homer's brain could be the engine that keeps the town frozen. His unconscious mind sets the rules. The rules include sliding time and flexible geography and characters who do not age. The hidden genius theory. The Simpson family chose to be happy instead of smart, and the town around them is a place gentle enough that this choice is possible. A harsher world would have forced them to adapt. Springfield, being outside normal rules, lets them choose stagnation. Mr. Burns's immortality. Burns is only immortal because Springfield is. In a real world, his body would have given out decades ago. Inside the town, he is free to keep going indefinitely because the town does not enforce mortality the way a real place would. Moe as a role. The Moe theory needs a town that does not notice when one person is quietly replaced by another. Springfield is exactly that town. It does not keep careful track of who its people are. It lets identity shift. Skinner as Armin Tamzarian. The town agreed, in court, to pretend a man is someone he is not. A real town could not maintain that agreement for long. Springfield can, because the town bends to whatever its residents need it to be. Ned Flanders as something dangerous. A town with fixed rules would notice a man whose goodness is unnatural. Springfield does not. It absorbs him. It lets his surface be the only thing that matters, because the surface is all the town really processes. Ralph's paternity. The quiet lie of Ralph's family holds together because Springfield is a place where quiet lies hold together forever. A real town would eventually produce someone who said the truth. Springfield does not produce that person, or when it does, the town cuts to a reaction shot and moves on. Sideshow Bob and Lisa. The town keeps pulling them into orbit around each other. A real world would have either resolved their connection or forced it apart. Springfield holds them in suspension, forever almost becoming friends, forever almost becoming enemies. Krusty and Homer. Two men with the same body, the same tendencies, the same blood, possibly the same father, living in the same small town, never once making the connection. No real place could keep that connection hidden. Springfield keeps it hidden without effort. Every theory in this video runs on the same engine. Every theory depends on Springfield being the kind of place where normal rules do not apply. The Springfield effect is what makes all of it possible. The show has known this for a long time. In multiple episodes, characters have briefly noticed that their world is strange. Lisa has referenced the fact that her family is on television. Homer has talked to God and been told he is a cartoon. The fourth wall in Springfield is not really a wall. It is a curtain that characters occasionally brush against, and on the other side of the curtain is the idea that the show itself has rules the characters cannot understand. Some of those characters on some level might understand. Maggie, who never speaks, sometimes looks at the camera in ways that seem too deliberate for a baby. Lisa, who is too smart for her own town, sometimes has an expression the animators linger on, an expression that reads like someone who is almost about to ask a question. The show leaves those moments sitting there. It does not resolve them. It lets the viewer sit with the possibility that the smartest member of the Simpson family has come over the course of 30 plus years very close to realizing where she actually lives. She has not realized it yet. None of them have. Springfield keeps them safe from the realization. The town holds. The rules bend. The people do not age. The buildings move. The dead come back. And somewhere, in the middle of all of it, a family of 5 lives a life that has been frozen on a Thursday night in April 1987, and they love each other, and they fight with each other, and they forgive each other, and the world outside their town keeps moving without them. The trade, if the theory is right, is worth it. They never lose each other. They never grow apart. They stay together in a town that was built to keep them that way. That is the story The Simpsons has been telling for almost 4 decades. A family that cannot be broken. A town that cannot change. A life that cannot end. And if the theory is right, that is not a limitation of the show. It is the point of it. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.